Imagine sitting in a doctor's office and hearing the words, "You have cancer." Your world stops. Fear rushes in. But you trust your doctor, so when he prescribes aggressive chemotherapy, you sign the papers. You're willing to endure anything if it means saving your life. For hundreds of patients in Michigan, that trust was betrayed. Their doctor, Farid Fada, was a respected oncologist with multiple clinics and a sterling reputation. But behind the white coat, he was running one of the most shocking healthcare frauds in U.S. history. From 2005 to 2013, Fada intentionally misdiagnosed patients, telling healthy people they had cancer, and then prescribed toxic chemotherapy they didn't need. Why? Because every dose, every treatment meant thousands of dollars in insurance payments. One man went through years of chemo, lost his teeth, and could barely walk, only to later learn he never had cancer at all. Another woman lost the use of her legs. In total, Fada pocketed tens of millions of dollars, leaving more than 500 victims devastated. In 2015, he was sentenced to 45 years in prison. A federal judge called him a monster in a white coat. Now, thankfully, most doctors aren't like Dr. Fada, but his story is a sobering reminder of what happens when the professional you trust is not truly committed to your best interest. When the person across from you chooses their own gain instead of your good, the damage can be life-altering. And here's the thing, it's not just in medicine. Think about a mechanic who finds problems in your car that you don't really have, or a lawyer who pads the billable hours, or a financial advisor who recommends products that pay them the highest commission, whether or not they're right for you. In every case, the real issue is the same. Whose interest comes first, yours or theirs? That's the heart of what we're going to be exploring today. In the world of financial advice, this is the difference between a salesperson and a fiduciary. A fiduciary is bound to act in your best interest, not theirs. And that difference could change the entire trajectory of your financial future. Welcome to Plan to Prosper, where we exist to honor God by equipping faithful servants to steward their finances wisely and build wealth that endures for generations. All right, Logan, we are here again for another episode of Plan to Prosper, and we're going to be talking about fiduciary duty.
Yeah, the sad cold opening about a doctor who's untrustworthy. The one that gets me is the mechanic. I remember the first car inspection I got in Pennsylvania, I went to a large national mechanic chain, and they quoted me at like $2,000 of work that needed to be done before they would pass my car inspection. So I told him, fine, I'm not getting the work done there. So I brought my car down to a trusted mechanic in Delaware, and he called me and he was like, some of the stuff is fine. I would feel bad even changing this. It looks new. So I'm not going to change some of this, and you're going to bring it somewhere else. And the 2,000 that the mechanics quoted me, my mechanic did everything that he felt needed to be done for $300.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Similar thing happened to me once. I had scheduled, and my car was due for an inspection, so I scheduled it with a local mechanic. Well, it wasn't a local; it was like a chain, some random chain. I don't want to poo-poo any particular company, so we'll just call them Pep Boys. So I scheduled my appointment, and the day before, I got a flat tire. So I took my car to get the flat tire fixed. They fixed it, put a brand new tire on. It was a brand new tire. They didn't just patch the hole. Put the new tire on. I take it the next day to the mechanic to get inspection, and they give me a call and they say, "Dude, you need 4 new tires. All 4 of them are worn down." I said, "That's funny because the back left tire is brand new. I got it put in yesterday." And they were like, "Oh." So it's a real thing. These people are often not the most honest, or there's this tendency. And
that's what happens when money's involved.
Yeah. So as financial advisors, it's a really important thing that your financial advisor is not incentivized by selling you certain products or their own financial gain above yours. These things are really quite linked, so we need to try to align our interests as best as possible.
Right, and there's always going to be money involved, but the money doesn't need to incentivize you to upsell. I even think of when I went to Best Buy at one point to buy an iPhone, and I was like, I don't remember what it was. I think 13 might have been the new one, 12 or 13. It was whatever one they were switching. there's no longer going to be the auxiliary cord because I wanted the one down because I liked my auxiliary. I like being able to. I don't buy nice cars that have Bluetooth, so I like the auxiliary cord.
Sure.
And they're like, nah, the App Store is going to stop supporting this one, the one that you're trying to buy, and all this stuff. And they ended up upselling me, and it was because they were incentivized to sell me a more expensive product.
Yeah. Although I will say, I was bummed when they got rid of the headphone jack too. But, you know, it's just the way life goes. You get used to it, and
I still can't listen to something in my car, though, and charge my phone at the same time.
yeah, and that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I just need to buy a nicer car.
Nicer car, or go try to find an iPhone on eBay
Just
or
means I have
something
to
that has a headphone jack.
Pay more money.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk about what a fiduciary is. Plain English definition. What is a fiduciary for anybody that might not know?
Yeah, it just means you're, as a financial advisor, you are legally and ethically bound to act in the client's best interest with whatever advice is being given, and you have to consider the client's best interest in totality, not just at that moment.
Yes. And this kind of came about as a result of the Great Depression and the stock market crash of 1929. Over the next handful of years, there became a lot of regulations that were coming out to try to increase the ethical standards in the finance industry.
Yeah, I think the first act was in like 1933.
Yes.
And then they did 1940.
Right. So specifically, the 1940 Investment Advisors Act is what created established this fiduciary duty for investment advisors. They wanted to protect investors, which made a lot of sense, and they wanted to set this standard for financial advisors that were legally bound to act in their clients' best interest above their own.
It also put financial advisors under the SEC, which, one thing I don't know, is that when the SEC was created, or did they just put advisors under the SEC?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either.
Yeah. And so this created this fiduciary duty for financial advisors, the loyalty, care, and then
transparency.
Also the transparency, right? The full disclosure of any and all potential conflicts of interest so that investors could go into that kind of a relationship with eyes wide open.
Right.
There were some other things that it put into place, like things that financial advisors couldn't do, things like front running and churning. Could you explain what those are?
Yeah, front running is if I like a stock or even an ETF for my clients, I'm buying it for all clients, but I realize that if I buy it for all clients, it's probably going to do okay. I'm going to buy it in my account first as a financial advisor, and then buy it in my client's account because then I will benefit from all of my clients getting in and potentially pushing the price up. And then churning is placing trades, unneeded trades, as a financial advisor because you make money off of the commission of the trade. Yeah.
So you're just churning through a whole bunch of trades and collecting a whole bunch of commissions off of it.
Right. And I know of an advisor at one point in life. This was a long time ago, and they didn't tell me, they told somebody else I knew, but they had said that they were allowed to collect commission based on trades. And he had said something about whenever the private school tuition bill comes up, the temptation's always there to start placing trades in accounts just because he's got to pay a bill.
Yeah, and it's scary to think about. I mean, quite frankly, for your investment advisor to have that conflict, even if you're aware of it, knowing that temptation could be there, making trades to benefit off his own bank account. So the SEC, the Investment Advisors Act, put these policies in action so that investment advisors can't do that. It also established the best execution standard. So like when you do have to make a trade, so not the churning unnecessary trades, but when you're making a trade for a client, when it's ethical, you're trying to do it with the best combination of low cost and the efficient execution of it.
Yeah, there are ETFs that ETF stocks that don't trade a lot during the day, but are still considered good investment vehicles. And one of the things that even we deal with is, if I want to buy 50,000 shares of this ETF and it's only traded 2,000 shares on the day, how do I best do that? Sometimes it's placing a limit order. Sometimes it's actually calling the trade desk and having the trade desk work with other people in the industry to try to come up with a price in between the bid and the ask. So a little bit of jargony stuff, but just trying to get that price, that best price for the client.
Yeah. And so this was to clear up a lot of confusion. I think in the industry, there's a lot of potential for confusion because it's fairly complex stuff, and I think investors were getting confused and there was just no transparency. And this came about and helped clarify a lot of these things. But it's not as if every single person that calls themselves a financial advisor is bound by the fiduciary duty and is a fiduciary, which further complicates things and makes it even more confusing in our industry to this day. That makes it difficult to know, is this person bound by fiduciary duty or not? Because there's another standard beyond the fiduciary standard that's just called the suitability standard. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, the suitability standard, it's a lot of times broker dealers and insurance agents fall under suitability standard, and essentially just means that the advice or the product that you provide has to be suitable for the client, but it doesn't necessarily have to be within their best interest. So you've got to make sure that the client can withstand whatever product you're providing them with, and you're not selling a ultra risky investment to an 80-year-old who's depending on this to live. That would not be suitable. But there are things that you could put in there that potentially pay whoever's selling it more, but it's still suitable for the client. Yeah.
So historically, broker-dealers and insurance agents were seen more as salespeople, not as advisors. Because when you think about, like the Best Buy salesman, he wasn't bound by a duty to serve your best interest. He was trying to sell you the best thing that he could. So upselling made sense for him, even if we still recognize it as like a little ethically shady, or the used car salesman is always kind of the example that people use of like somebody that's kind of just shady in their dealings because they're always trying to sell you.
Selling a lemon.
Yeah, exactly. So salespeople not known to be, I don't want to just say all salespeople are evil or anything like that, but just
I know
like
plenty of good salespeople.
Yeah, of course. But there is just kind of this stereotype in our culture generally about salespeople. Just be like they are just trying to meet their own bottom lines, and they do that by upselling you as best they can. So the same thing was true in the financial industry, that these people in these particular roles were kind of more on the sales side and not really true financial advisors advising with the best interest of the client in mind.
Yeah, interestingly, I was just reading another advisor who is a fiduciary, and he cited a statistic that I was unaware of. He said that of assets essentially currently being managed in one way or another, only 57% of people that are managing assets in one way or another fall under the fiduciary standard.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a mixed bag. So you don't really know without maybe asking, knowing what you're getting with any given financial advisor that's out there.
Yeah.
So the suitability standard, again, the product must be suitable for the client's goals, age, and risk tolerance, but it didn't have to be the best or even the lowest cost option. So, for example, if there were two mutual funds that both of them met the individual's needs, they could sell you the one that paid them the higher commission. They're allowed to do that under the suitability standard.
Right. Yeah, and there are ways that that you can do that, and it's even not very transparent. Like there's something called 12B1 fees, where if you get a client into a fund where the expense ratio is a little bit higher, you can actually participate in collecting some of those fees, and the client doesn't necessarily know it. I think you're supposed to disclose it, but let's be real. How many clients actually read all 100 or however many pages of the disclosure brochures that the advisor provides them with?
Yeah. And quite frankly, like it's a fairly low bar. Like the broker dealer simply needs to believe that the decisions that they're making benefit their client. And, that's a pretty easy thing to argue. Like I believed that was the best thing in there. Like if they were ever to be, confronted on it or anything, that's all I have to do is believe that it was in their best interest. Whereas fiduciaries are held to a much higher standard of truly acting in the client's best interest.
Yeah. And I would say one of the, it's a lot more transactional, the suitability standard. So a lot of what's being sold, the majority of the fee being made is in a lot of cases is being made up front, whereas kind of on the opposite end, the fiduciary has the responsibility to continually care for the client and therefore continually gets paid.
Exactly. But I think what makes it confusing is that over time, a lot of people that were under the suitability standard would present themselves as financial advisors, financial planners. And so it would lead to, it's led to a lot of confusion because you've got two people that are both calling themselves financial advisors. One of them is held to the fiduciary standard and one of them is held to the suitability standard. So it's confusing and we need to clarify that.
If anybody, I go to a ton of networking events. I'm sure if anybody who's listening goes to networking events, they are very aware of the amount of people at networking events that call themselves financial advisors. I'll go and introduce myself and somebody will ask, what do you do? I'll say, I'm a financial advisor. I'll say, oh, I am too. What kind of financial advising do you do? I say, comprehensive financial planning. What about you? Oh, I sell insurance.
Yeah. It makes it really confusing for your average person that is not well versed in talking about these things to know who do I trust? How do I understand these things? And I think that's what's kind of our goal today is to try to help clarify some of those things. So there's kind of two categories. There's registered investment advisors, which is what we are at Stonecrop, and these legally are fiduciaries and bound by the fiduciary standard. They must disclose and also minimize as many conflict of interests as possible. And then there's also the brokers and the agents, and they're not regulated under the fiduciary standard. They're under Reg BI, which stands for best interests, and so they must act in the best interest of clients. Or they kind of under the suitability standard, but they can often sell commission products and earn commissions off of what they're selling to the clients.
Yeah, and kind of the way that you can potentially think about it is how are you paid?
Yeah,
that's one of the ways that you can kind of one of the dirty words in sales is do they have to meet a quota?
Right.
Yeah,
and we'll get into some questions later that you can ask your financial advisor to make sure you understand everything about how he's set up, how he's paid, and all that. But the key idea is that the fiduciary means your interest comes first, always, without exception. It kind of an analogy is like a fiduciary is like a doctor that will prescribe what will actually heal you, not what will make him the most money.
Right. And hopefully they're, the doctor's healing and making money at the same time.
Yeah. So we kind of want to look at fiduciaries from a scriptural perspective too, because this principle is not just our legal duty as financial advisors regulated by the SEC. This is our Christian duty as well, because 1 Corinthians 4:2 says it's required of stewards that they may be found faithful. So those who are entrusted with the resources of another must be faithful, honest, and accountable. There's also, everybody knows this, but the golden rule in Matthew 7, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You are acting in the other person's best interest. Proverbs 11, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord. We have to be honest, transparent in our dealings. We have to do unto others as we would have done to us.
Yeah. One of the stories I was thinking of recently that I think kind of illustrates this as well is Zacchaeus, where after seeing Jesus and starting to get to know Jesus, he realizes I have to stop extorting people or ripping people off. There's just kind of this duty that, I have to follow Jesus' commands and do the golden rule.
Right. I saw a meme a while ago that was like, can you imagine having a life-changing experience, a life-changing encounter with the living God, and then you were forever known from that point on as a wee little man?
I like that.
That's his legacy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a tax collector and was shady in all of his dealings, as tax collectors tended to be. But he met the Lord, and he changed his ways. Luke 16 says, "Faithfulness in little things demonstrates faithfulness in much." So if you're faithful in a little, you'll be faithful with a lot as well. So it's important for us scripturally to be fiduciaries as well.
I also like Philippians 2, 3 and 4. It says, "Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility consider one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others."
I mean, that sums it up pretty accurately.
Yeah.
We kind of see fiduciaries as they're kind of a steward of your stewardship. You've been called to steward your finances, but when you hire a financial advisor, you're kind of hiring them to help steward your stewardship. So you want to make sure that that's done really well with a high standard, and we see the fiduciary standard as the way that can happen.
And I think it's also part of one of our corporate virtues, servanthood, which you can also see in Mark 10, 44 and 45, where it says, "And whoever wants to be first among you shall be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." So yeah, we are here to serve clients, and doing that by falling under the fiduciary standard.
Yeah. So kind of an example of how this might play out practically. You might have hear all this and just go, okay, so there might be people out there that are trying to sell me something that is not good for me or is not in my best interest, or that meets the suitability standard, which still sounds, it's a standard. It's not like there's no standard there. So what's an example? Like, how could this actually impact me? So something that I was thinking about was, let's say you just retired and you've got a $500,000 401k that you don't know what to do with. So you go to a financial advisor and you say, okay, I just retired. I've got $500,000 in my 401k. I really want this. I want to protect this. I want something safe. I want something that will just give me consistent returns. What could I do here? I want to know that this money's not going to go away. And so financial advisor that's held to the suitability standard might say, okay, well, what if we did an annuity and we put all of this money into an annuity, and then you get this guaranteed return, this guaranteed income over the next X amount of years. And the person goes, wow, okay, that sounds great. Well, what they might not have known is that that particular annuity maybe had a really high commission. It was really expensive. You put a lot of money into it to start, and that yielded a pretty good commission check for that particular investment advisor. What they maybe also didn't realize is that, what if I need more than the annuitized amount on a year? Like, let's say an emergency happens and I needed to fix my roof and I needed an extra $20,000 that wasn't accounted for. There might be some hefty penalties that come with that.
You're getting hit with that surrender charge.
Your surrender charge, and your money is not very liquid. So this money that you had available to you in a 401k that you could have used for those expenses is now locked up, and it's very illiquid. You have the annuitized amount that you can get, but you do not have access to the whole thing. And meanwhile, that investment advisor or the financial advisor got a big commission check off of it. So it maybe wasn't in your best interest to actually get into that product, even if it met the suitability standard.
Yeah. On occasion, in my opinion, on occasion, there might be a reason to get into an annuity.
Sure.
But more often than not, you can do a decent job of replicating what an annuity is doing without commissions.
Yeah. So another kind of a good outcome, or to take that same example of a financial advisor that would be acting in their best interest, would be a financial advisor that sits down, hears the kind of the concerns of the client, and puts them in something that still is conservative, that if that is one of their bigger concerns, is not putting them in massively risky investments or anything like that, but is also making sure that they're taken care of in the event of an emergency, that they know that they have the liquidity to be able to cover any kind of potential cash needs that they have in the coming years, and their funds are not all locked up into a particular product that freezes those funds for them. So,
yeah, and potentially even more available to heirs.
Right. Yeah. And this compounds over time, making sure you're getting consistent advice from a trusted fiduciary over the years versus somebody that's just selling you things that helps make them a lot of money. Over time, the difference really starts to stand out. And
Yeah, because I think it kind of starts to become obvious because the fiduciary really has to know you, has to get to know you, and somebody who falls under the suitability standard doesn't necessarily have to. They can sit down and, I'll be your financial advisor. Do you have life insurance?
Right.
No. All right, let's start there. Let's put this much life insurance in place without even necessarily knowing whether or not you even need it.
Yeah, exactly. So why this matters, there's hidden fees oftentimes in these products that you don't even know about that may not even be disclosed to you, the commissions that the financial advisor is earning off of it. These non-fiduciary advisors may be incentivized to sell you things that really you don't need or certainly are not in your best interest because it really helps them quite a bit. And so the transparency is really important, and a fiduciary is bound by the duty to act in your best interest, but also to be transparent about everything regarding how they're paid.
Yeah, and I would say the transparency is even important in the sense that you can see if the advisor has ever gotten in trouble for anything as well. You can go to like FINRA broker check, or I think it's like SEC advisor check.
Yeah,
and look up any disclosures and any moments in this advisor's past that they might not have dealt in the client's best interest and had to settle for a certain amount or something like that. So, that's something else people don't realize with the transparency, but they should, and they should look into it a lot more than they do.
Yeah. So not only are we trying to avoid as many conflicts of interest as possible, it's maybe impossible to avoid every single conflict of interest. There may still be some that come up even in a fiduciary relationship, but they're required to disclose it. But also trying to align interests as best as possible so that when the client wins, the advisor wins too, that there is this alignment in goals as well that a non-fiduciary advisor might not care about. Yeah,
just an example of how you're not going to be able to remove every single bit of conflict of interest. If a fiduciary is working with a client who wants to buy $1 million house, and the only way to buy the $1 million house is by pulling $1 million from their portfolio, the conflict of interest there is, well, if you buy that house, then I'm going to get paid on $1 million less of portfolio assets. So that's where the conflict of interest isn't ever going to be totally gone.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot less conflict of interest when you're not selling something for commission.
Yeah. Another one that people often think about is, well, are you paid on the performance of my account? Like if my account does really well, are you paid off of the gains that are earned on the account? And the answer is no. We're not legally not allowed to do that, but you also don't want us to do that because that incentivizes us. Like just assume, okay, we only get paid if the account performs well, and if the account doesn't perform well or the account actually tanks, we don't get paid at all. But that incentivizes us to put you in the riskiest investments possible because that has the greatest chance of doing really well. And if it does really badly, because there's a good chance of that happening as well with a risky investment, it doesn't impact us at all because we're not getting paid in either way. So you don't want an advisor that they shouldn't be doing that because they can't. But that's something that people often ask. And you don't actually want that. Yep. You don't want your advisor just putting you in some crazy risky investment because that gives them the greatest shot of getting paid.
I didn't know that legally they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
Yeah. So this helps give you peace of mind, confidence that the person you're working with is working on your behalf and not just on their behalf.
Right.
Not trying to exploit you. So if you have a financial advisor, ask them some questions. And this is, we're always happy to answer these questions when clients or potential clients come to us and they ask us these questions because I think we have good answers for them. And you can ask, how are you paid? That's kind of the first one. Don't be afraid to walk away if their answers don't satisfy you, but just ask them, how are you compensated? Fees, commissions, AUM, what is your structure for compensation?
Yeah, if you're recommending this life insurance policy to me, are you getting paid on the life insurance policy? If you're recommending I put this mutual fund in my portfolio, is that mutual fund paying you anything?
Right.
Yeah, all of those different kinds of questions.
Yeah. You can also just directly ask them, are you legally bound to act as a fiduciary at all times? Because there's also another, again, to add to the confusion, there are these duly registered advisors. There's kind of these hybrid roles where they can actually switch back and forth. And you never know what they're doing at any given moment. If they're under the suitability standard or if they're under the fiduciary standard, they can be registered as both.
I think a lot of times you can kind of figure that out because we're under the SEC, we have to provide all these different disclosures and everything. I think a way to kind of figure that out without even necessarily asking is if the disclosure says securities offered by, and it's not actually the financial advising company. I think that's a way to kind of figure that out as well.
But still, it's hidden under, not hidden. There are the disclosures and stuff that need to be put on websites and the agreements and things like that. But it's a lot of fine print that people probably often don't read.
Right.
So I think it's an important question to ask too,
because
they have to answer it. We've kind of talked about the compensation, but do they receive incentives for recommending certain products? Are they more incentivized to recommend a certain product because of what they're going to be paid on? Are they willing to put the fiduciary commitment in writing? If they are a fiduciary, they would have probably done that anyways. So it's worth asking the questions to make sure that the person you're working with is acting in your best interest.
Right.
Some warning signs of a non-fiduciary relationship, if you haven't asked the questions of complicated fee structures, if you're confused about the way that they're compensated, even without asking them, that they might not be a fiduciary. If there's any resistance to transparency, if you do start asking the questions and they kind of beat around the bush a little bit, that is not a great sign. Mm-hmm. Any other ones that you can think of?
I would say murky fee structures, where sometimes they'll provide you with a fee structure, but it's so complicated that you can't really understand exactly when and why and how you're paying. I think that's just a kind of a typical red flag of, if I can't even understand the fee structure, what are they doing? I've also heard of advisors that will tell client, you pay me nothing. Obviously, that can't be accurate because that can't be 100% accurate because they have to feed their family. They have to provide so somebody's paying them, and
right.
Client is the one that is using them. So I would say that's another red flag.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What are you doing for, you're not doing this pro bono. This isn't a charity that you're running.
Yeah,
you're
so
like, how are you making your money?
Yeah.
So how do we practice fiduciary duty at Stonecrop? What do we do that ensures that we are acting as fiduciaries?
I would say first, we're really getting to know our clients. One of our convictions is that we can't provide good advice without knowing the client and their whole situation.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why this podcast is not to be taken as personal financial advice for anybody. This is it's for informational purposes, but it's not personal financial advice because we're not talking to any specific person.
Right.
And that's something that's really, really important to us that we strive for. And we will even there will be clients that come to us and want to, hey, can you just invest this money for me? Like I have X amount that I want somebody to help me invest. Can you do that for me? We will do what clients want us to do, but we don't like that kind of a relationship. We don't want somebody we're just managing assets and we don't meet with them to talk about we want to do financial planning for clients. We want to meet with them, get to know them, and present financial plans and dig into every aspect of their financial life and make sure that they're taken care of. And we're not just managing their assets. We're actually involved with their entire financial life.
Yeah, because part of managing the assets is knowing what your portfolio can withstand, what you're depending on it for, those different questions where you really need to know the person before you can recommend, let's be a little bit more, let's concentrate a little bit more on stocks in this portfolio, or let's concentrate more on bonds in this portfolio. You need to know what it's for.
Yeah. Yeah, and with clients, we want to have a relationship where we are regularly meeting with them and regularly creating these plans, we don't like it when it gets to a point where it's difficult to schedule meetings, difficult to get financial plans done because the client's just not interested. It's not an ideal relationship for us. We really want to be involved in their lives and understand every aspect of their financial life so that we can give them the best advice.
Yeah, people are very uniquely different, and so there shouldn't be an expectation that there's this one size fits all financial advice product or whatever. We like to tailor our advice depending on what the client needs, what the client wants, and where they're trying to go.
Yeah. Obviously, we're also the way we're compensated. We're fee-only financial advisors. We don't earn commissions on any product. We aren't selling anything. We're financial planners. We do it. We will manage your assets for you, and we're compensated with a fee based on that, and that's it. We're not paid any other way.
And I would say that we do recommend products from time to time. Not products, different vehicles like life insurance. But I think the fee only part helps us even be objective in if we come up with an issue with a gap in life insurance, if we weren't fee only, then we could potentially recommend the life insurance agent that has agreed to pay us the most if we send business their way.
Right.
In the case where we're fee only, which we are, we're just trying to find partners that do the best work for our clients because we want our clients to be happy and provide a solution to their problem.
Yeah, exactly. Because we do. I mean, we are not anti-insurance. We see the need there. And when we talked about our path to prosper a few episodes ago, that is one of the early stages that we think every person should take a look at specifically their life insurance, but disability as well, to make sure that in the event of a catastrophe, they're taken care of there. But I think, when we present that to clients, we try to reiterate them. We're not. If you go and get a life insurance policy, there's no commission involved here for us at all. We genuinely just think you actually need this because there's a big gap here. If something were to happen to you tomorrow, your family could be in trouble. So we want to present these solutions, but there's no incentive for us beyond doing what's best for them.
Yeah, and we're only going to recommend what we have uncovered that you need. We're not going to, this person has no life insurance. They only need $1 million, but why not give them $2 million?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we'll find the exact amount that they need, and we'll tell them the facts, and it's kind of on them to get it at that point. We can't sell. We'll recommend somebody if they ask us to, but we can't sell them anything or put that together for them. So, yeah, we don't just talk about the fiduciary duty. We live it. We, as Christians, we're biblically bound by the fiduciary duty, but as financial advisors, we're legally bound by it as well. And I think that's a good kind of two-sided. It's like kind of a two-sided coin for us. Like we're motivated by this duty in two ways, and I think even the stronger one is not the SEC. I think it's the scriptural support for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm convicted that you kind of to be a financial advisor, a Christian in the financial advising space, you should work as hard as you can to set yourself up to be under that fiduciary standard.
Yeah. So, if you're listening and you have a financial advisor, don't settle for the suitable advice. Seek somebody out that's rooted in the fiduciary duty, that's rooted in integrity and faithfulness to act in your best interest. And just as God entrusts us with resources, we should entrust our financial decisions to those who are committed to true stewardship as well.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about how we're different and that we've set ourselves up under the fiduciary standard. I think the thing to maybe reiterate, or I don't know if we really mentioned this, but there are plenty of other Christian advisors that set themselves out under the fiduciary standard. Just make sure when you go out there and you look for a financial advisor, pick one of those. Make sure you're asking all of those questions. There are good ones out there, and we just encourage everyone to set themselves up with a financial advisor under the fiduciary standard.
Yeah. And if you'd like to learn more about Stonecrop or how we can help, we would love to talk with you. You can also email us at plantoprosper@stonecropadvisors.com. We'd love to hear from you. And even if you have any questions, we'd love to potentially answer them on the show. But we thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you soon. God bless.
God bless.
Investment advisory services offered through Stonecrop Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. This material is intended for informational purposes only.